Well, welcome. Turn in your Bibles to Hebrews chapter 13. Hebrews chapter 13. If you're new here or you didn't see an announcement or memo or whatever, what's with the Hawaiian shirts? What's with the stuff up here? Number one, Vacation Bible School. Number two, Hawaiian shirts. Somebody a couple of years ago decided that it would be a good idea, or they thought it would be a fun thing for men that wanted to, not required, obviously, but for men that wanted to wear Hawaiian shirts on the last Sunday of the month in the summertime. So, hence, this is what has evolved. And so, if you show up on the last Sunday of the month during the summer, you'll see some guys wearing Hawaiian shirts and others. And, you know, we're just trying to be cool because we're not cool otherwise. So I think that's kind of how that works out, and that type of a deal. But summer in Pampa is different. I figured that out 13 years ago, but it's great once you kind of get in the rhythm of it, get in the flow of it, and understand that things shift gears here, and it's just different. Now, what that means here at our church, it doesn't mean that we shift down. It doesn't mean things get slower, because in many cases they get faster, and there's a lot more that goes on. I've tried to change my mindset into some thinking. Rather than saying we're busy, I'm trying to use the word we're active. Because sometimes busy is just a reactive, without purpose, frustrating type existence. But here, and some people might say we're busy, but I've tried to change that to say we're active. We're active in a very intentional way. And what I mean by that is this. In the summer, there's a ton of stuff that goes on. Most of it looks completely different than during the school year when we have just our regular scheduled routines and that type thing. The summer, it looks different. There's a lot that goes on, but they're very intentional things, such as the Vacation Bible School that starts this evening, and there will be several hundred people here from this tonight through Wednesday night teaching boys and girls about Jesus and using a wrestling theme of all things. I mean, I've seen space themes, I've seen mountain themes, I've seen Bible Holy Land themes. I've never seen a wrestling theme, and it is wrestling with an A, not with an E. But I've never seen a wrestling theme in a Vacation Bible School before. But what it's talking about is that we live in a battle, right? And we have to be courageous as followers of Jesus Christ. And so I think the boys and girls are going to learn a lot about what it means to be a follower of Jesus in a fun and creative way. And that's what all this craziness is about. And Ryan, by the way, nice hair. I like the little, I don't know what you call that hair. It's kind of like a flock of seagulls looking kind of thing going on there. And then in a couple of weeks, we'll have kids camp. We'll have some other special things will happen here. We've got a team that will be going out of the country to Malawi. We'll have youth camp. We'll have some other special things that will go over the course of the summer for different targeted groups here. So things look a little different this time of year than they do during the regular school year. But just hang on. It's good. They're all good. But look for a place to plug in. It's not everything for everybody. These are very targeted ministries that take place over the course of the summer. So I hope that you'll be praying for those. I hope that you'll look forward to those opportunities. But throughout the summer, we will do this. We will meet for worship jointly together in this place. And what I'm doing over the course of the summer is walking through Hebrews chapter 13. We spent most of the spring looking through the book of Hebrews, but now we're in Hebrews 13 specifically looking at some detailed instructions, some detailed imperative statements that are given about how we should live out our faith. Because here's what it comes down to. Chapter 13 is where the rubber meets the road. It's where belief meets behavior. It's where the words, what we say we believe, turn into works, turn into actions. It's where our attitudes, what we say we think, we know about Christianity, what we say we believe the Bible teaches, it's where our attitudes turn into activity. It's how we live out those truths. Chapter 13 has a list of very specific, practical things, not unlike a lot of the letters of the other pastoral letters in the New Testament, where there are practical commands or practical imperatives given about how we should live out our faith. We come to verse 2 this morning, and it's a simple one. It's really not all that complicated. I think sometimes we try to make things complicated. But look in verse 2. It says, do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by this some have entertained angels without knowing it. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers. By doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it. Over the last couple of weeks, I've had to go 3 different trips down to doctor's offices in DFW, and I went Wednesday, which was not a big deal. Just go down, make this visit, and then they wanted me to see a specialist, which is not a problem. It's really a good thing. And so wanted to see this specialist, and so we called, tried to get an appointment. It was like 2 months away to get this appointment. And the doctor said, well, why don't you just try to go over to their office, and then maybe you can get an appointment sooner than trying over the phone. You know how that works? Like, you call over the phone and they just put you off for like 6 months, a year, we'll see you eventually. And that's fine, and there's not any emergency type thing, but I'm like, I bet if I go over there in person, I bet I can get a quicker appointment. And so I left, and I went about 3 blocks away to this other doctor's office, and I went up to the office, and it was lunchtime, of course, which, means nobody's ever where they're supposed to be at lunchtime. And so I go, there's a long line because they'd combined the different reception desks to one reception desk. All these people were waiting in line, and this really nice lady was checking in all these different folks for several different clinics at that one particular time. So I finally got to my place at the front of the line, and I was very kind. For those of you who don't know, that's my wife laughing down front. I was very kind. And I got it, and I said, here's what I need. I said, my oncologist wants me to see this specialist, just a referral, and that's to come. They said, that's great. Well, and she tried. She couldn't make it go through because some coding and whatnot. And she said, well, I'll tell you what, if you could just hang on, the receptionist for that particular office is at lunch. They'll be back in just a few minutes. So if you'll just hang on and go over there, that'd be fine. And then they will be able to get you the appointment and try to work that out. So that's fine. So I sat down. I actually went to the car to get my phone charged because my phone was running dead. You probably didn't need that detail, but so I waited, and then I get up to the front, and a new lady was there, and she said, I can't make this work. What do you need? I said, I need this appointment with this person as soon as possible, And at this point, the other lady who'd been at the other clinic desk covering for all these people at lunchtime, she comes around through the back hallway, and she pops in there. And so she's explaining to this lady what I needed. And within, a couple of minutes, they had an appointment for me. They said, well, we can't work that out, but how would you like a virtual appointment tomorrow? I said, all day long. I mean, you make me a virtual appointment all the time. I'm game with that. So that's great. I said, that's super because I live 5 hours from here. I'm about to get in the car, and I'm not going to come back tomorrow because I was having to come back the day after that for a baby shower. But that's a whole different deal. Long couple of weeks. Anyway, so got an appointment, virtual appointment, come home. The next morning, first thing I get a phone call, and I look on my phone, it says UT Southwestern. I'm like, well, that's kind of normal. They call all the time like we're buddies. And so I said, hello. And they said, well, Mr. Williamson, yes. I said, you have this virtual appointment? Yes, in just a few minutes. And they said, well, we're unable to have your virtual appointment today because you need a referral from your primary care physician. And it happened to be the lady who was really, really nice in person. Remember at those 2 different desks that helped me the day before? She was really, really nice to me. And so I said, well, number one, why didn't you tell me this yesterday? I could have got it done. Well, can I get it done this morning? I can call the doctor's office. I can run right over there and get it to you right now and fax it to you. Well, no, we don't think that that's going to work. We're just going to have to cancel this appointment and reschedule it another time, probably in a couple of months. And so I said, in my nicest tone, I said, well, what if I self-pay? How much would it be just to pay for this appointment? Don't worry about insurance, because it was just seeing the doctor in a virtual appointment. I'm like, how much can that be? but let me just self-pay this because I don't want to be to put off for 2 months. And, well, I don't know if we can do that. Are we allowed to take actual money? Well, go ask somebody, please. And so they go and ask somebody, and they come back and say, well, you can do that. Lo and behold, you can actually pay for something. They told me how much it was. I said, thank you very much. I'll be ready to log on at the time that was coming up in a few minutes. Thank you very much. I hang up. A few minutes later. I mean, not 5 minutes later. Oh, let me back up. She said I had to prepay that appointment before the appointment, right? The self-pay thing, prepay. So she calls me back, said, we're going to have to cancel that appointment. We just can't do that. It just won't work in our system. We don't know how to code that. You can't do that. You can't self-pay. I'm like, lady, I already paid for this appointment. And it was like $275. I already paid for this appointment that's a few minutes away, and now you're wanting to cancel. I said, the next thing you're probably going to tell me is you don't have any way to refund the money that I just paid that you asked me to pay before that next appointment in a few minutes. And so just picture the kindness and my patient, loving, hospitable attitude was long gone. And I hate this so much because within seconds, I was reminded of the passage that I was going to share this morning. Don't you hate that? And so, make a long story short, they were able to work it out for my appointment. I did apologize for my less than kind attitude toward the lady who had helped me. What is the deal? That this Christianity actually has to be lived out. It would be so easy if we could just say we believed it and then went and lived however we wanted to live. Wouldn't it? Amen. Let's go to lunch. But where it matters, well, the title I've given to the series this summer, the glory is in the details. Not just the glory of God that we see in this vast, majestic sense, and we see His glory in details, but it's when we live out obediently these truths, when we live them out in the details of our lives, that's when God is glorified. And sometimes that hurts. Sometimes it gets personal. Sometimes it gets a little frustrating. But that's what it means to live out our faith, to work out our salvation. Let me give you just a few thoughts about this showing hospitality to strangers. I did paraphrase that. It means if you want to memorize a paraphrase, I'm not much for paraphrases, but here's a paraphrase. Don't be a jerk just because you think you don't know them. That's the paraphrase. First, consider this with me. Hospitality should flow out of our walk with Jesus. And my dear loving family, can identify times when what's flowing out of me does not match up with what should be a walk with Jesus. I know it's me. I don't think it's only me. I think some of us would join together and say we struggle with the flesh. That there are times what we're living out is not consistent with what we say we believe. But hospitality should flow out of our walk with Jesus. The more we spend time with Him, the more that's going to be evident, not just to us, but to everybody that we encounter. And so our reaction is going to be in the spirit towards those other people, those unknown people, those strangers, rather than our reaction being in the flesh. My wife is the absolute most hospitable person I've ever met in my life. She fits this so well. She shows hospitality. Don't neglect to show hospitality to strangers. She just has this sense about her that's able to connect with anybody she meets in any context. And I honestly cannot remember a time when she responded like I typically always respond. I mean, she's just very, very kind. And she has a way of connecting with people and in some ways kind of disarming people. And her position with our school district now, and for years it's been in other type positions, especially as a pastor's wife, you encounter a lot of people who aren't happy at various times and stages of life. But she has an ability, a gift really from the Lord to be disarming, to help people just to be calm, or whatever the Hebrew word that Josh was saying over here, to just kind of diffuse situations. Well, that's a gift. The other part of that is the ability to make everyone feel welcome, whether they're the haves or the have-nots, whether you can do something for her or not do anything for her, whatever. She just has this welcoming demeanor. She's very hospitable. That's just the way that's the way God formed her. It's the way her mother raised her, and her mother is the same way. I'm not that way. I tend to respond in the flesh. Maybe it says more about who spent time with Jesus and who hasn't. We celebrated the life of a precious lady here Friday morning, Lynn Ray, who was that same person. She could just make everyone feel welcome. And in a room full of people, you were important to her. That's demonstrating hospitality. That's being welcoming to people. There's an unfortunate translation, and don't freak out when I say this. Some versions of Scripture have translated this verse to use the word entertain. It says, don't neglect to entertain strangers. And the reason I say unfortunate, it's not unfortunate in the original sense, but it's unfortunate in the sense of our understanding of the word entertain. Because in our culture, entertainment is frivolous. Entertainment is rah-rah, laugh, happy type stuff. And that's not the sense that this verse is meaning. The sense of don't neglect to entertain strangers means to consider their needs, means to make them feel, not just make them feel significant, but for them to be significant. It's not putting on, it's not a fraud, we're trying to fool you sense, but it's that person matters. And so would you wrap your brain around that understanding of this verse and say that rather than don't neglect to show hospitality to strangers, say it like this: make sure strangers know they are important to you. That's how that plays out. That's how that lives out. And that's how we should demonstrate this attitude toward others. It's a constant attitude that we should have. Romans chapter 12, verse 13 speaks of this. It says, share with the Lord's people who are in need. Then it says in two simple words, practice hospitality. Practice hospitality. Hospitality is a welcoming, it's a disarming, it's an acceptance. But that flows out of our walk with Jesus. Secondly, we must be intentional in showing hospitality to people with whom we're not familiar. In this verse specifically, a lot of people read this and they go straight to the last part of the verse because they make it all about angels. I'm not trying to discount the reality of angels. Scripture teaches of angels. Angels are important. Angels are ministers of the Lord for our good. Angels are messengers from God for us. But the point here is that we're not to just be nice to people just in case they're an angel. We're to be hospitable to people, period. That's who we should be as followers of Jesus. Is people that show hospitality, that show consideration toward other people, regardless of what we experience. Over the years, Pampa has had a revolving door of people from all over the country and at times all over the world coming here to work in the plants or in the oil field or wherever it may be. And you can go almost anywhere and find people from Pampa, or find people that spent some time here, or their cousin was here, or whatever. I remember right before we moved, I told my son's coach in Houston that we're moving to Pampa. He goes, "This is in Katy, Texas." He said, "Oh, my next door neighbor's from Pampa." And now I always wish I'd asked who his next door neighbor was, because you probably know him. But there's all these connections. And unless you've been under a rock this week, you heard Laura Ingraham say on Fox News that Pampa is one of her favorite little towns in the country. Or specifically what she said is one of her favorite little towns. Well, that's pretty neat. But what you glean from that is that people have come in and out of this community forever. And that's important. And we're in a time period now where there are more and more people coming into this community. They're coming in for work. That's a good thing, isn't it? We want people to work. It's good when people are coming into a town to work. But sometimes, when we have to sit through a cycle of the red light more than once, it's a little inconvenient. Or stores are a little more crowded. It's okay. But here's what I want you to see. Just like we have a team going to Malawi, Africa in a few weeks, if we can go to Africa to tell people about Jesus, we probably should be willing to do the same thing to the people that the Lord's bringing right here. Regardless of where they've come from, why they've come, or how long they'll be here. I served in 2 different counties over the course of my ministry, for 4 years in Collin County and then for 13 years in Fort Bend County. Collin County is north of Dallas, the Plano-McKinney area. When we were in Collin County, it was the fastest growing county in the United States. When we lived in Fort Bend County for 13 years, it was the fastest growing county in the United States. And people are constantly in and out, in and out, in and out. There are people always moving in. I remember specifically at our church in Plano, I was a youth pastor there, and at the church in Plano, the pastor would tell us, he said, "Listen, we have people for 5 years." They had done the analytics, and people would move in there and get transferred out different places around the world. He said, basically, when people move in here, we have them for 5 years. So for 5 years, we want to share the gospel with them. We want to disciple them. We want to plug them in and equip them to serve in ministry. And about the time we get them serving in ministry, they move off. I mean, that was just kind of the reality. But does that mean that we just throw our hands up and say, well, forget those people? No. What we did is we poured everything we had into those people that were just there for a limited period of time. And because of that, that church touched people around the world. It was the most mission-active church I had ever been a part of, still had ever been a part of. And part of that is the Lord brought people into our church from all over the world, and then we discipled them, equipped them, trained them, served alongside of them, and then they scattered and went all different directions and continued those same things everywhere else. So we didn't look at them and say, oh, they're just here a little while. Don't worry about them. No, we were on purpose about it. We were intentional about it. And that's how we should be here. That's what that's what it means to be hospitable towards strangers. So what does that look like? It looks like every other type ministry that we do here. We'll have Vacation Bible School, several hundred people here over the course of these next few evenings, and we will be very intentional to share the gospel with them, with those children that come in. But it's not just the children that come in, it's the homes that they go back to. So what we do, we're not just impacting the ones who walk in the door here, we're impacting the home when they walk back through the door going back these evenings. Some of them will be here this week and will continue to be here for a long time. Others will come in the door this week and we might not see them again. Does that mean we don't care? Of course not. It means that when they're here, we're very intentional with them. What I want you to see is that it's not just that area, but it's every area we have as a church. One of the most proactive, intentional ministries we have is our Celebrate Recovery ministry. And they'll have men or women pop into that ministry, and they might be there a week, they might be there 2, they might be there for months. But immediately when they come in, they're a part of it, and they're people that are poured into their life for intentional, good, healthy, biblical purposes. That's how we should be across the board. That's how this verse plays out. That's what it means to practice hospitality with strangers. You see how that all connects? Sometimes we try to make it too complicated, but really what it is, it's just living it out. It's extending grace. It's sharing kindness. It's sharing support. It's sharing the gospel. It's being proactive in the lives of the people that God puts in our lives. So just to wrap this up real quickly, a couple of thoughts. Number one, who has the Lord placed in your life that is a stranger to you? Now, I will give you a little homework at the end of the service. Here's what I want you to do. Find somebody strange and talk to them. That'll be your homework. But what is a stranger? These strangers to whom it's referring, they can be people who are saved, that you just don't know them. They could be people who are lost, who don't have a relationship with Jesus. They could be people that you don't know how, but for whatever reason, the Lord has brought that person, that stranger, into your life. I'm not one of those people that thinks that's accidental. Oh, everything in life is just a coincidence. No, I believe that God is sovereign. And I believe God is purposeful in everything that He allows us to experience in life. And every person that He allows us to impact. Every person He enables us to confront. Every person He enables us to meet, to work with, to live next to, whatever it may be. God's on purpose about that. So if He's on purpose about it, shouldn't we be on purpose about it? So that's the first application. Be on purpose with the people that God's placed in your life. Look for those opportunities to be a blessing for the glory of God. That doesn't mean the first time you meet them, you take out your biggest, heaviest Bible and try to hit them over the head and ask them if they know who Jesus is. That time might come. But no, it just means you begin to build a relationship with them. You consider their needs, you meet them, you extend the right hand of fellowship to them. And in so doing, you're building a bridge for the purpose of sharing the gospel, or for the purpose of encouraging them to grow in their faith. Now let me shift to a second application. Personal application. Isn't it amazing how God welcomes me and you, a sinner, undeserving, with His love, His grace, and His mercy? Isn't that amazing? Now, here's my question for how you can personalize this, not how you extend it and express it with others, but personally. Have you shown hospitality to the Lord in your life? That does not mean, have you given Him a chair and said, Lord, come into my life, sit over here in this corner, while I'm going to do everything else over here. No, it means, Lord, come into my life and make yourself at home. You follow me? You know the difference? Sometimes we're okay with, Lord, come in, take your seat over there in the nice clean room. But what it means to trust Him, what it means to genuinely be a follower of Jesus, for Him to be the Lord of our life, is to say, Lord, come in and make yourself at home. So my question for you this morning is, have you asked the Lord to come be at home in your life? Maybe the thought of that gets you blood pressure a little elevated, because you're like, maybe that's great, but Lord, don't go in that room. But if He comes into my life, is He going to know that other person over here that I let hang around? Trust Him. There's no one more important for you to invite to be at home in your life, obviously, than the Lord Himself. And if we're uncomfortable about some things that we have hidden back in there, that's what we need, is for Him to come in and to root those things out. Because we've tried to kick those people and those bad habits out for a long time, haven't we? For whatever reason, we just can't quit. We just can't get rid of those things. Why don't we let Him come and make His home in our heart? And then He'll take care of all that stuff.